Sage in black. Pages breathe when you're not there. Turn the key, the shadows talk back. Midnight rings you if you're dead. One more line, one more flight into the weird unknown. SL tonight, and the rainbows of
Good evening, and welcome to the Shadows. You're seated in a quiet study, far from the clamor of the world. The fire crackles low. A single lamp casts its golden pool across an open book. Tales carefully chosen. Tales that unsettled even the master of suspense himself. Outside, the rain taps against the window. Crows shift restlessly on the mantel. The chair beside the desk waits, empty, yet somehow expectant. This is Hitchcock's Tales That Terrify, Shadows from the Master, presented on SL tonight. Each week, we turn another page, step into another room where the ordinary tilts towards the uncanny, where fear wears its Sunday best and smiles politely before it strikes. Tonight, the shadows lengthen over a lonely Tennessee lake, and something watches from beneath the water. Settle in, turn the lights down low. The story is about to begin. Good evening, partygoers of peril, and welcome to episode 6 of Hitchcock's Tales That Terrify, Shadows from the Master, on SL tonight. Unwrapping the Master's chilling selection, merging his legacy with stories that spooked him. From apocalyptic whimsy, we pivot to Party Games by John Burke, a 1965 psychological chiller from the anthology. Quiet, sly Simon Potter, around 10 years old, attends Roddy Ronnie Jarman's birthday bash uninvited. As the disliked creepy Simon disrupts games and faces bullying from peers, tensions build to a gruesome revenge twist, transforming innocence into horror. Its blend of childlike play and macabre irony reflects Hitchcock's subtle dread. In the mid-1940s, amid World War II, Hitchcock crafted confined thrillers. Lifeboat, 1944, trapped survivors in a single set, blending propaganda with tension. While Spellbound, 1945, delved into psychoanalysis with surreal Dolly dream sequences. This era's isolated psyches aligned with that story's party-bound chaos. Join the festivities. The story commence. The moment Alice Jarman opened the front door and saw Simon Potter on the steps, she knew that there would be trouble. Behind her, the party was growing noisy. Already a fight had broken out. Two boys were shouting at each other, and there was an occasional thump as one or other of them were thrown heavily against the wall. But it was the usual sort of fight. A party at which small boys didn't fight wasn't much of a party. Simon Potter said, Good afternoon, Miss Jarman. He was 8 years of age, and he was not the kind of boy who would be involved in a fight. He was polite, neat, quiet, and clever. And he was unpopular. His unpopularity was such as to keep him out of the scuffle rather than bring one down upon him. He was a cold little boy. Even as he stood there with his deferential smile, he gave Alice the shivers. He wore a new raincoat, his shoes were highly polished, probably by himself, she thought, and his pallid brown hair was sleeked back. He carried a neatly wrapped present. Alice stepped back. Simon came on into the hall. At the same moment, the door of the sitting room was flung back, and Ronnie came pounding out. He stopped when he saw Simon. He said what Alice had been sure he would say. "I didn't invite him." "Now, Ronnie—" "Many happy returns, Ronnie," said Simon, holding out the package. Ronnie could not help looking at it. He could not help the instinctive movement of his hand toward it. Then he shook his head and looked up at Alice. "But, Mom—" She smoothed it over, or rather blurred it over. The noise and exuberance from the sitting room helped. Ronnie was unable to concentrate. He wanted to stay and argue, wanted to accept the present, and wanted to get back into the uproar. The three things bubbled up and blended in his mind. Alice took Simon's coat and steered him towards the gate. He didn't need to be told to wipe his feet. He added nothing to the muddy treads which some of them had left. Ronnie tried to say something, but somehow he was holding the package, and then he began to unwrap it as he followed Simon into the room. Alice stood by the door for a minute or two and looked in. "Hey, look! Super!" Ronnie tossed shreds of paper aside and opened the box within. He took out a model crane and held it up. "It's battery operated," said Simon quietly. It was a simple statement, but it wiped the pleasure off Ronnie's face. The others, who had crowded closer, edged back and turned to stare at Simon. His present was more expensive than any which they had brought. He had done the wrong thing. He was always doing the wrong thing. The fact that he did a thing made it wrong. A large boy with carroty hair pushed Ronnie. Ronnie put the crane on a chair and pushed him back. A girl with blue hair ribbon said, "Oh, don't start that again," and stepped to one side. She found herself close to Simon. He smiled. He looked at her and then another girl a few feet away as though to draw them both nearer to him. "Always talking to girls," Ronnie had once said of Simon to his mother. Alice watched. Yes, she could see that he was a boy who would talk to girls because he had nothing to say to boys. But the girls were not flattered. Instead of listening to him, they giggled and made eyes at each other and then scurried away, looking back and still giggling. Alice went towards the kitchen and drew the curtains. It would soon be quite dark outside. In summer, they could have had the party in the garden, but Ronnie had elected to be born in the winter, so most of the celebrations have been accompanied by a trampling of wet feet into the house and a great fussing over scarves and gloves and rain hoods and mackintoshes when the guests left. Tom would be home in another 20 minutes or so. She would be glad to see him. Even though the din would not diminish, it would somehow be more tolerable when shared. Tom would organize games, jolly them all along, and make the little girls in particular shriek with laughter. Until he came, she couldn't concentrate on the food or anything else. She had to keep dashing back to the sitting room and make sure nobody was really getting hurt and nobody was being neglected. She had started them off on a game of musical chairs, but her piano playing was pretty terrible, and while she was at the keyboard, there had been chaos behind her. Then she had suggested a treasure hunt, only to realize that she had done nothing about hiding the treasure before the party started. You know, to be fair, what's the problem? They don't know. She was not very good at organizing parties. The sheer pressure of the children's excitement overpowered her. No matter how much trouble she took in the days beforehand, when the birthday itself came, she was never ready for it. Not that it mattered, Tom assured her. Just open the door, let him in, leave him to it. When there were signs of the furniture cracking up under the strain, bring on the sandwiches and jelly and cake and ice cream. It was all very well for Tom. He did not get home until after she had taken the first shock of the impact. 20 children together were not just 20 separate children added together, 1 plus 1 and so on. They combined into something larger and more terrifying. There was no telling what they might do if the circumstances were right, or wrong, depending on the way you looked at it. There was a howl of derision from the sitting room. Alice nerved herself to go and make another inspection. By the time she got there, it was impossible to tell what the cause of the howl had been. Simon Potter was backed against a wall, while Ronnie and his best friend grinned and bobbed their heads with lunatic merriment, exaggerating the movement, slapping their sides like bad actors in a school play. Ronnie saw his mother watching him. His grin became genuine and affectionate. Then, before she could frown or ask him a silent question, he swung around and gathered up an armful of his presents. "Come and look! Look at what my dad gave me!" Somebody groaned theatrically. A boy with pimples blew a loud raspberry. But they all gathered obediently round. It was the accepted thing to do. This was Ronnie's party and Ronnie's birthday, and at some stage it was only fair that he should insist on their inspecting his trophies. "My dad gave me this." Alice felt soft inside at the sound of adoration in his voice. "And this. My dad gave me this as well." It would have been just the same if Tom had given him a cheap scribbling pad or a box of crayons. The devotion would have been there, unwavering. She loved him for loving so intensely. Simon was watching gravely. He showed neither excitement nor boredom. He did not make approving noises, and he did not exchange glances and sly boredom with anyone. He was remote, dispassionate, unmoved. Yet somewhere behind that bleak little face there must be envy, or at the very least sadness. Simon's father had died years ago. His mother had brought him up with a single-minded fervor that allowed him no relaxation and little contact with other children, even though he spent so many hours and days and weeks at school with them. She worked hard in a solicitor's office and managed to run the home as well, determined that the boy should not feel the loss of his father too deeply. Each afternoon he stayed on at school for an hour in a class set aside for children with difficult journeys, difficult home backgrounds, or with working parents who could not leave their jobs in time to meet the children. By the time he did get home, Mistress Potter was in the house waiting for him, ready to devote herself to him. She was proud of the life they made together, proud of their home, and proud of Simon's unfailing neatness and politeness and cleverness. Alice saw him clear his throat. She saw it rather than heard it, the way he ducked his chin and gulped. He edged forward. She thought for a moment that he was going to ask if he could have a closer look at one of Ronnie's presents. Then he said, "What about a game?" The heads turned. They stared at him. It was a little girl who broke the sudden silence. She seemed glad of the diversion. "Yes, let's do something. What shall we play?" "If we could get some pieces of paper." Simon glanced swiftly at Alice, and she realized that all along he must have been aware of her scrutiny. "We could put someone's name on it and—" "Oh, paper games," groaned someone. "Choose a name," Simon persisted, "and write it down one side of the paper. Then divide the paper up into squares and have, say, flowers and trees and names of, well, footballers if you like, and then have to get into the letters of the name." The boy who specialized in boiling raspberries blew another. "What's he talking about?" said the girl with the blue hair ribbon. "It's easy." Simon's voice rose pleadingly. "You write the name down on one side of the paper, then you write the things you're going to have across the top. That is, the categories you've chosen, and—" "Oh, paper games," Alice intervened. It was time for an adult to take control and tell them what to do. She walked in the room and tried desperately to recall the games they had played when she was a child. Her mind refused to render up its memories. All she could remember was a girl going through the seat of a chair and screaming, and a squat little boy who gathered an audience around him while he practiced spitting into the fire. She said, "Now everybody." They turned thankfully towards her. "What about Postman's Knock?" she ventured. There were shrugs and hisses and moans, but the girls squealed hopefully and nudged one another, and in no time at all they were playing Postman's Knock. And now you see, this is the reason why we have television and we have internet and we have video games. So we don't have to play shit like Postman's Knock. Alice retreated again, leaving them to it. From the kitchen door she glanced occasionally across the hall, and then felt absurdly like a voyeur. Some of the boys behaved with a flamboyant confidence that indicated a prolonged study of films, which they ought never have been allowed to see. Some of the girls wriggled, others relaxed and enjoyed themselves. It was frightening to see in these children of 8 and 9 years of age the pattern of what they would be as adults, patterns already forming, some already established. And there was Simon outside the door, waiting. He knocked. The girl who came looked at him warily, prepared to be haughty or coquettish. After they had kissed, she wiped her lips with the back of her hand. Simon went back into the room. The girl looked up at the ceiling and said loudly enough for him and the others inside to hear, "Ugh." They soon tired, the boys sooner than the girls. "Murder! Let's play murder!" As the door opened and Ronnie came racing out, Alice tried to assemble good reasons why they should not play murder. She was not quick enough. Already they were racing upstairs. Two boys came to the kitchen, making for the back door, and stopped when they saw her. "Not outside," said Alice quickly. This, at any rate, she could prevent. "It's too muddy in the back garden. You gotta stay indoors." They turned and dashed away. She heard footsteps pounding overhead. There was distant slamming of doors. Lights were switched off. Ronnie appeared suddenly in the splash of brightness thrown out from the kitchen. He and the pimply boy were grinning and whispering. Simon Potter passed them on his way towards the stairs. As he went, they clutched each other conspiratorially. Before Alice could make a move, Ronnie swung towards her. "Don't mind if we close the door, Mum?" He did not wait for an answer, but closed it quietly and made her a prisoner. She knew there'd be yells of protest if she opened it again. Bet you she's wishing that she'd have just simply said that there was a treasure somewhere, but she never put anywhere, which I still say would have been the perfect time to get, 8 and 9, like they're gonna know. Search forever. There was a full minute of uneasy silence. In her head, it was incongruously noisier than the last hour had been. In the hush, the tension was building up. Something was going to snap. A muffled thump came from upstairs. It was repeated. It might have been somebody banging insistently on the floor, or somebody hammering to be let out. If, she thought apprehensively, they had locked somebody into one of the rooms, or one of the old cupboards at the far end of the landing, the creaky cold end of this old cold house, somebody, Simon. Then there was a convincingly blood-curdling scream. Alice jerked the door open. "Put that light out!" "No, it's all right." Ronnie's voice came from the landing. "It's over." Feet pounded downstairs again. Lights were snapped on everywhere. Everyone was shouting at everyone else. Who had been murdered? Who was it? To Alice's relief, the victim was Marian Pickering, a fluffy little blonde with eyes too knowing for her years. There was indeed quite a possibility, thought Alice uncharitably, that Marian would finish up on the front page of certain Sunday newspapers. Boys and girls swarmed out of every cranny. The hall seemed to boil with activity. Then they were all jostling into the sitting room. There seemed to be twice as many people here as when the party began. She could hear the shouting. Ronnie was trying to establish some kind of order. "Who was on the stairs? Shut up, will you? We got to find who was on the stairs and who was downstairs. No, sit down. Oh, shut up a minute, will you?" The inquiry was going to be a disorderly one. It needed a strong hand to control it. Instead, there was shouting and shrieking, a carryover from the tenseness in the dark. It was really dark now. Alice had not realized how swiftly the evening had taken over. 20 minutes earlier, it would still have been too hazy to play murder. Now there was a blackness outside the windows. Through the hubbub of voices, she heard a faint but unmistakable sound. It was Tom's key in the front door. She was halfway across the hall as he came in. "Darling!" He had to lean precariously forward to kiss her. He was laden with an armful of garden tools, a trowel sticking out of some torn brown paper, a pair of secateurs, and a short-handled axe. "Going well?" He nodded towards the sitting room door. "I'm so glad you're back." "Ah, that means it's getting out of hand, huh?" "Any minute now." It was so wonderful to see him. His lean, furrowed face was so reassuring. The smell of pipe smoke in his hair, the quiet confidence in his eyes, the sight of his competent cabled hands, everything about him strengthened her and at the same time soothed her. Yet there was something wrong. Something nagged at her and demanded her attention. As he turned, he laid the garden tools across the umbrella stand. She realized the sound was still going on upstairs, the intermittent thumping she had heard earlier. "I'll just dump these," Tom was saying, "and then plunge into the fray." She was jolted into awareness of what he had done with the tools. "Don't leave them there, for goodness sake, with all these little monsters in and out." "Oh, all right. I'll take them out to the shed right away." "It's filthy out there. You'll get mud all over your shoes." She broke off and laughed, and Tom laughed. "I do sound like a nagger, don't I?" she said. Nag. as in, nagging a nagger. Just want to clarify. He tucked the implements under his arm and headed for the stairs. I'll leave them in our room, he said firmly. Ronnie emerged abruptly and ecstatically from the sitting room. Dad! He threw himself at his father and butted him, trying to get one arm around him, smiled up at him. Come on in here. Come on in and see. I got a lot more things, but nothing like you gave me. In a minute or two, son. I gotta go upstairs with some things. I'll be right down. Alice looked past them into the sitting room. She moved closer to the door. Then she said, Ronnie, where's Simon? Simon, where is he? Ronnie shrugged and humbled his father again. Don't know. Probably gone up to the laboratory. Ronnie, if you've done anything, locked him in anywhere, don't be long, Dad. Ronnie twisted away and slid cunningly past his mother. She could not bring herself to pursue him in that whirlpool of arms and legs and boisterous faces. Tom said, Anything wrong? I don't know. I just wonder if they played some horrid joke on Simon Potter. Didn't think he'd been invited. He wasn't, but he came, poor kid. They kept him on the edge of things, and now I think they've done something. The din from the sitting room was so overpowering she could not swear to hear the spasmodic thudding from above. They locked him in one of the cupboards or one of the rooms at the far end of the landing. I'll see, said Tom reassuringly. She was glad to turn away towards the kitchen and leave it all to him. Now everything was going to be all right. Two boys scuttled out of the sitting room. Miss Jarman, where is it, please? First door on the left at the top of the stairs. They went up 2 stairs at a time behind Tom. Alice felt comfortable and safe when she returned to the kitchen, instead of being a frightened outcast. She began to put cups of jelly on a large tray. In another 15 minutes, they could start eating. After that, Tom would organize them while she cleared the food away and did the washing up. Ronnie came in. Mom, where's the stuff for the game? The corpse stuff. The sledding upstairs stopped, but there was a louder thump, as though someone had fallen or banged or something heavy against the floor. Perhaps it was Tom wrenching one of the open cupboard's doors. They were old, stiff, and misshapen. Ronnie, did you... She did not wait for her to finish. He scooped up the small tray that had been so carefully prepared earlier today, covered with a sheet of thin brown paper, and was gone again. She heard him yelling at the top of his voice. All right, everyone, come on, sit down. Now I'm going to put the lights out. Hey, wait for us. Footsteps hastened down the stairs, and 2 or 3 boys dashed into the sitting room. They must have been queuing up for the laboratory. Once one wanted to go, they all wanted to go. Soon, thought Alice, the girls would begin. They would all be smitten at the same time by the idea rather than by the necessity. Now, Ronnie was shouting, his voice so hoarse with continuous exertion that it cracked on every 3rd or 4th word. There's just been a murder. We worked out who did it, but we never got round to dealing with the corpse, did we? That was me, piped up Marion. Yes, we know, but hey, shut that door! There was a slam of the door, and the voice was muffled. After a few minutes, there was a loud squeal and a burst of laughter, then another squeal. Alice arranged triangular sandwiches on a plate. She could almost follow the progress of the game by the pitch of the shrieks. Here's the corpse's hand, Ronnie would be saying, and then he'd pass a rubber glove stuffed with rags along the line in the darkness. Here's some of its hair, and along would go some of the coarse strands from an old sofa which was rotting away in the garden shed. And here are its eyeballs. 2 peeled grapes would pass from flinching hand to flinching hand. Everything was ready for the party tea. She went to the door. It was time for Tom came down. She could hear no sound from him. She went to the foot of the stairs and looked up. Tom, are you nearly ready? There was no reply. Perhaps he had joined the end of the queue for the laboratory, having some more self-control than the overexcited little boys. Alice decided to put an end to games for the time being. She went to the sitting room door and opened it. Aw, Mom, close the door! Time for tea. She switched on the light. There was a squeal, then another, and all at once it was hysteria, no longer a joke. One little girl sat staring at what was in her hand and began to scream and scream. Alice took a step into the room, not believing. One boy held a severed human hand from which blood dripped over his knees. The girl who could not scream was holding a human eye in her right hand. The girl next to her also held a human eye, squashed and torn. On her left, the pimply boy went pale and left a tuft of hair fall between his fingers to the floor. Alice said, No. Somehow she kept herself upright. No. Simon? Where's Simon? I'm here, Miss Jarman. The voice was quite calm. She turned to find him standing at one side of the room. She tried to find words, still cool and detached. He said, They locked me in. Ronnie and that one over there locked me in. But I'm all right now. I was let out and everything's all right now. She stared at the hideous hand chopped bloodily off at the wrist, and she recognized it and also the color of the hair that lay on the floor. Simon Potter stood quite still as Alice Jarman ran from the room and up the stairs. She found her husband lying in front of the bedroom cupboard with which he released the boy. The garden tools lay beside him, splashed with red. The axe had first smashed into his head, then chopped off his hand. Then the cicadas had snipped off a tuft of his hair, and the trowel that had clumsily gouged out his eyes. Simon, pale but content, was now not the only boy in that room downstairs without a father. And so bursts party games, where childhood revelry pops into retribution, a sly sting on hidden malice. Like Simon's calculated turn, Hitchcock orchestrated psychological layers in confined spaces. By 1946, he directed Notorious, a spy romance with Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant, innovated crane shots and uranium MacGuffins amid post-war intrigue. Despite studio pressures, it honed his espionage elegance. Curated tales like this echoed that ironic finesse. What twisted your expectations? Comment. And I gotta say, again, that whole tell them that there's a treasure thing and just not hide a treasure. Again, I bet you that's starting to sound a whole hell of a lot nicer now. I don't know. Come up with better games? Well, like, comment, subscribe. Next, X Marks the Pedlock by Fritz Lieber. Until the next surprise, good night.
Rockets resting in green afternoon light. Typewriters dreaming all through the night. A smiling sun hangs on a cardboard sky, where the future got lost but never